composition that had good late game team fighting, and then the LeBlanc with the 1-3-1 that we've seen very little of throughout the split. Both of those things look like they were difficult for Team Dignitas to deal with. You have to wonder if there's a number 3.
Phoenix1 will be opting into red side yet again. Let's see how this plays into their plan. And Dignitas, first ban. Get that out of my game, they say.
Yep, not getting that again. This is so far the exact same bans as game 1. Shen, different though. It was previously Kha'Zix that Team Dignitas had banned away, and that's where the jungle started getting pinched from Phoenix1, where they were able to ban out 3, because Dig had already banned out 2 and done a lot of the work for them.
To see how that causes Phoenix1's plan to change, if at all here, considering they won't be able to focus the jungle as hard without their opponents throwing in some of their own bans to help. Lee already banned away, means they're really respecting Chaser's potential on that champion. You mentioned how he's got so many games on it so far, and Graves is the next ban from you.
Yeah, it's also not really an overlapped champion either. Inori has not played a game of Lee Sin this split, and he's been focusing things on more like Kha'Zix, whereas Chaser, it's comfort for him for sure.
Always good to be able to ban one of those away if you know that it's a powerful pick, it's an effective pick, it's one that they play, but you don't. There's really no downside to removing them.
Yeah, especially because it hasn't seemed like Team Dignitas have had those picks that really work for them. So what Phoenix1 wants to do with their bans is just pick out things that they think could be good, and they have a lot more freedom with what they can do, whereas with Syndra and LeBlanc, those are 2 very targeted bans.
Yeah, the amount of respect Dignitas is showing Ryu right now, taking away both champions that he's played so far in the series.
Yeah, and that leaves up a whole bunch here. Rengar, Lulu, ban one, team gets the other. If you ban Elise here, you'll at least get one of those 2. And they ban the Camille instead. They don't play it. Zig hasn't played it.
I want to make sure that Ssumday is kept off of that carry potential. Yeah, Rengar, the hover for Team Dignitas.
I feel like you take it. I feel like you take it away from Inori. And Lulu actually, though, does play well into Rengar.
It's a good pick.
Yeah, and this also can give them over a Nautilus if they want it with the Shen ban. The worry then is, will Team Dignitas have Ssumday on a more damaging champion? The Lulu's a definite pick for them. The big question then after that is, do they just pick the Nautilus right off the bat?
They could go for a Rumble because the counter that we're seeing is the Camille, and that's the Blanc that we see here. That's the ban that we see from the Camille from Phoenix1.
Yeah, a lot to decide as well, because Arrow's been so good on things like Ezreal. They're already having a lot of junglers banned, so the Kha'Zix pick is pretty generic to me. It is a very highly played champion by Inori, but since the nerfs, it's very rare we see Kha'Zix take over games.
Well, Nautilus has been left up. We've mentioned before how that is the most played champion for Ssumday this split, so if Dignitas wants to lock that in for him, they're capable of doing so. Instead, they're going to go ahead and opt for the Ezreal first, getting that one for Laud.
Yeah, it's also a denial pick for Arrow. Arrow's Ezreal has been extremely effective for Phoenix1.
I wonder if he'll adapt the build and go for Blade of the Ruined King first on Laud's side this time.
Yeah, it's obviously a possibility. It depends on the strategy, right? Arrow had gone, I feel like, for the Blade of the Ruined King build because they wanted the early pressure out of the Ezreal. I usually don't see players copy other players' builds immediately.
Yeah.
I feel like they'll try it first. And since Laud didn't go with that build in game 1 and instead went with the standard, that's what I expect out of him in this game.
Nautilus will be picked up for Ssumday, so he's on his most played champion. Chaser is on his 2nd most played champion, right behind that Lee Sin, by the way. We'll have to see what Phoenix1 wants to finish out their own first half of the draft with.
Yeah, we haven't seen it in a while, it feels like, but I was wondering if we're going to see Kled from Zig at any point. Only because they didn't prioritize the Nautilus, even though it has effectiveness. Potentially top lane Fizz here.
Yeah, we have seen the top lane Fizz, the Bruiser style with the Trinity Force, Blade of the Ruined King even potentially.
But this is interesting because it also means that the Nautilus that was potentially flexed last pick ban from Phoenix1 that they respected by banning Renekton, they could actually be facing that again, where Xpecial might play the Nautilus bottom, and then they get to pick what they want into the Fizz. So Phoenix1 kind of going against their own philosophy from last champion select, and just saying this Fizz is really strong, especially into Nautilus.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance you can even put the Fizz somewhere else if you really want to.
Yeah, like mid, right?
As well. So a couple of different flex options. I feel like the odds on are top lane Fizz against top lane Nautilus because that's what we've seen before. Now we're into phase of the bans.
2 supports banned away by Phoenix1, betting that it's not a support Nautilus. Ahri banned away by Dignitas, showing even more respect to Ryu.
Actually, I figured it out now, because if it is a support Nautilus, they will know before they pick their mid laner, and then they can flex it. So the last pick here, their mid laner for Phoenix1, most likely, they'll pick their AD carry, and then their mid and counter pick. And if they see that it's a Nautilus that's going support, they'll know exactly what to do from there.
4 out of 5 bans overall from Dignitas were targeted at Ryu. Are we going to see a Juggernaut with a Lulu and something else maybe to protect it?
You always have the chance, right? You don't even necessarily need something else to have the Kog'Maw have high effectiveness, but you do want to be very comfortable with your overall team composition when you pick that.
I feel like, yeah, they changed over to the Orianna because you would expect maybe to see Orianna be the mid if Kog'Maw's locked in because she can protect him, and they don't want to give that away.
Yeah, a little bit different here, not waiting for the Orianna to be that last pick or the mid lane last pick.
So here's the thing. I didn't mention this last game, but I actually really dislike teams that counter pick with Orianna. I feel like Orianna is almost the blind pick mid laner. So if you're using it as a counter pick, so to speak, it loses a lot of its effectiveness.
Yeah, and this is actually the counter pick that Keane likes to bring into Orianna with the Azir. There's kind of that trinity that was going around where it was like Ryze beats Cassiopeia beats Ryze, etc., and then Orianna beats Cassiopeia. This was kind of the last one on that end that Keane brought up and went, Azir beats Orianna, just outranges her, doesn't let her get in position to throw the ball down. So he's been using it quite frequently. He has 3 games so far this split.
It's a champion that we haven't seen a lot of overall, though. So Keane will have to be.
One of the few that still plays it in North America. At this point now, Phoenix1 does have the option. They have a lot of protection they can bring with Lulu, Orianna. I think Caitlyn is actually the pick for it because they destroyed Team Dignitas with lane pressure last game, and the Caitlyn Lulu can apply a lot of that lane pressure, and depending on how the matchup does go in the mid lane between Ryu and Keane, can maybe set up some immensely good pushers early. So there we go.
All right, Caitlyn locked in. That's going to round out the Phoenix1 roster. Plenty of protection, like you said, for that AD carry, but it's not like scaling is going to be a problem for Dignitas when you have an Azir on your team either.
Sure. Good scaling for both of these teams.
Very much so. Yeah. Both junglers capable of getting the ganks off, getting the damage in there, making the things happen if they can find the opportunity, the windows to do so.
And it's just another clever layer of pick ban for Phoenix1 where they took the Orianna so early on so that Team Dignitas couldn't have it alongside a Rengar and have another ball composition on top of it. So it's actually just like you were saying, Jatt, super good blind pick that rounds out the composition to have protection from the mid lane as well as a support position for Arrow, who's been doing quite well.
I mean, I was all on the train in Week 9 of North American LCS. I felt like every team that picked Ori with Lulu and then threw in Caitlyn would win because you're almost always getting 2 out of 3 winning lanes as well as late game insurance. And another question is, they got the counter pick Fizz into the Nautilus, and I want to see Zig's ability to play this matchup into Ssumday. Something we haven't talked too much about this series is Zig kind of absorbing Ssumday. Ssumday's winning, but it's not necessarily mattering.
And that's what we kind of were talking about, well, not us, but the analysts were talking about before the game started with these 2 top laners. Yeah, Ssumday might have more ferocious stats, but Zig is able to be the role player, able to be the guy who says, you know what, I'm a top laner, I'm going to do my job, and I'm not going to feed, and we'll win.
Yeah, role player is kind of like a dirty word for top laners where it's like, he's not a carry top laner, he's not a star, he's a role player. It's like, kind of like
he wins.
Slight at him.
Forget that guy.
He wins the game, but he's like, people are like, he's not the reason he wins. No, he actually is, because he's diffusing pressure.
I agree that it is good to have a role-playing top laner, but I actually do feel like it is a little bit of a dirty word. It's to me like calling an NFL quarterback a game manager. It's like, oh, he doesn't have the 40-yard spirals and the touchdown passes, but he wins, so game manager. It's good that he's not making mistakes, but definitely don't want to give him too much praise.
Yeah, of course, you're not going to say he's a superstar or anything or carries the team all the time. But
maybe he does on the Fizz.
Yeah, and sometimes I will say having too many stars, too many cooks in the kitchen can cost you.
Well, one thing I do want to go ahead and touch on real quick because we are seeing some important differences between summoner spells this game. No flash on the Fizz, going to the Ignite instead. A little bit of damage back and forth here at level 1. And the supports also different. Exhaust for Xpecial, Ignite for Stunt.
Yeah, I think it's the first exhaust of the series we're seeing in that bottom lane here. Even when the LeBlanc or the Syndra was in the game, I believe they were both still Ignites.
Ward being placed down by the bottom lane of P1 onto the red buff of Dignitas, just to sort of keep an eye on things here nice and early. Remember, this is do or die for Dignitas. P1 has taken this to match point.
Absolutely, and This time it is Phoenix1 with the red side Kha'Zix. So the jungle matchup's a little different than it was last game. Last game there was Graves on the blue side and completely eviscerated the Kha'Zix early on. Inori is starting Raptors, so I really want to see if he can maintain a healthier clear than Chaser did last match.
Yeah, I was about to say, I want to kind of keep an eye on what he does with this early clear.
Oh, didn't get any leash at all, not even an Orianna ball.
Yeah, so he's going to get pretty low then.
Gonna kite him around, give him a few autos. This will burn them down. Oop. Gets 2 there. That's actually perfect Raptor camp clearing mechanics.
Yeah, he's on point. Chaser cleared away his own red buff. Not really a whole lot to see between these two this early on in the game. Once you got those level 3s, then we might see something a little bit more exciting.
And clearing the jungle is sometimes great to watch, especially as a jungler. I'm just like, how's he doing it? He just actually put the right amount of autos on all the little ones
To get the burn from the Hunter's Talisman.
Same route, by the way, as Chaser from the last game, but is just not being punished in the same way.
Yeah. Way healthier, I believe, too. Put the fight down.
A lot healthier.
On the drug.
Keane currently eating a couple of hits there in the mid lane from Ryu. Remember to keep your eyes on this guy. Done so much work like you talked about, Jatt. Just Ryu, the Syndra and the LeBlanc both have been impressive so far. He'd love to round out this series with one last very impressive mid lane performance to take him and his team to semifinals. And Dignitas has to keep that in mind thinking about this guy the entire game.
Yeah, and before it was kind of compositions that allowed Ryu to assassinate and do his thing. Now Ryu can play a little bit more around arrow, and this is where you shield him. He'll walk up to turrets and siege and just give him some extra auto attacks. But Ryu has had some great shockwave plays all throughout the split.
Playoffs buff Ryu has often been a saying. He had a bit of a Worlds buff last year as well on H2K, really helping them through the group stage. So incredibly experienced and had a lot of clutch successes, something that can't necessarily be said from Keane, who last time was in playoffs, if I remember, was on Gravity and did not make it through the first round.
You know, in game number 1, guys, we were talking about, especially in regards to Phoenix1, the potential for nerves, the potential for inexperience to get to the players and impact their performance. But playoff buff's the exact opposite of that. That just shows that you're able to come in the clutch, get things done, put work in. It's very important.
Well, both Ryu and Arrow have a lot of experience. We talked about the rookies in playoffs for Zig, Inori, and Stunt. Well, Arrow and Ryu have both been in LCK finals. They've both had a lot of experience in terms of playoffs and high-pressure situations. That this is totally fine for them. They're big performers, too. You're looking at the damage dealt in that last game. They're both way far ahead of everybody else.
Chaser and Ssumday are going to look to make a big play in the top lane, though.
Playful Trickster makes some moves here onto Zig. Ssumday will be the one absorbing a lot of the turret hits.
If he goes out,
Chaser gets first blood, but then immediately dies in response, tries to get himself away with the flash, but not able to do it. Dignitas at least manages to kill that enemy top laner. They'll lose some farm to the turret now as well. Ssumday trying to get out before Inori makes his way up here. Ssumday should be fast enough to get out in time.
They had felt confident going for that because we didn't see it, but off screen, Zig had used his E, so they knew he wouldn't have it for that, but they weren't necessarily accounting for the Ignite that definitely helped tick down that kill in the end.
Ooh, Singed build here for Zig, going for rings. And so is Ssumday, so, you know, they're both flinging out the top.
3 Doran's rings.
He really wants the early power.
Yeah, they both do here. But yeah, he had used the Playful Trickster, still had about a 10-second cooldown here. And that root, that's a long anchor straight through the turret. Still rooting Zig with the auto. But then great from him to Q to the other side. And killed Chaser.
Ssumday couldn't keep on the turret for much longer. Still going to try and bully hard with that triple Doran's Ring build as well. We talked about being able to step up into the pressure, and Ssumday always thought the pressure was huge in Korea because he's a bona fide celebrity over there as well with how long he's been a dominant top laner. Many people saying top 3 in the world. So this is another time where he definitely does have to prove himself. You bring him in to North America and then exit in the first round of playoffs, it's got to be a big disappointment.
Ssumday has the most LCK finals appearances at 3, tied with Smeb. Also, last split, Ssumday, and actually 2 splits ago, both splits last year in 2016, Ssumday was second in MVP points behind Smeb both times. Guy has been a carry top laner. He's done huge works for the teams that he's been on. But Dignitas right now seems like they don't work unless he's giving stuff to the team.
And, I mean, we just kind of got done saying it. It's a disappointment if they get knocked out in the quarterfinals. And you got this guy who's an MVP in the LCK, who's a common finalist in the LCK. And I'm pretty sure most sources that you might ask would say that LCK competition's a little bit rougher than its NA counterpart.
Who have you been talking to, Captain Fly?
Who have I been talking to hear this blasphemy?
No. Absolutely correct. They are the preeminent region in League of Legends, but Ssumday needs to find success here as well.
Now, look at this. This bottom lane really hasn't been touched in terms of pressure from a jungle, and Lod stepped on a trap there that he really couldn't quite see.
He's the peacemaker for his troubles, too.
This turret might go down,
Oh
just
my
2v2.
goodness.
This feels like Arrow has taken Stunt over the last 2 weeks, and it's been like, this is how we're playing lane. They're doing all the time. Like, I'll turn on the stream at like 2:30 a.m., and it's like, oh, they're still playing.
Nope,
They're
still grinding.
going.
Still out there.
He's been training both supports, both rookies. They need this pressure. And look at this, Inori gonna come down bottom to give the last finishing touches here on the turret.
And this is what we wanted to see in game number 1 from Dignitas.
Back away, give it to Arrow.
Make sure you secure this first
going
blood
to.
turret. And
Yep.
Phoenix1 does it right.
Yep, they
All
back
about
off.
the Arrow.
Make sure Arrow gets it, and they also make it so it kills about one more creep there.
That's because. Oh, good flash away from Ryu, surviving that Shurima shuffle.
And that's the difference between pretty much like people who are middle of the pack mid laners and high top mid laners, because these guys will flash when they see like that's a situation where he's going for the kill, right? Keane, last time he played it, I remember him constantly shoving the enemy mid laner into his team over and over again. Got about 3 kills that way, where Ryu's just gonna blow flash, make sure that he doesn't die, and gets 2 ultimates for it.
Does
Yeah.
have to be careful now, though.
Yes.
You got to remember when the other team has the ability to make a play. Inori was bottom lane, so the next play was for Team Dignitas to make something on the top side, since that's where they had the numbers advantage. And Ryu was very cognizant of that.
But he likes to play forward so much. the Ryu stat. He's punishable. He's super punishable. But it's also funny, too, because Faker plays that far forward a lot, because it's the whole philosophy of how you approach the game of pressure equals wards, not the other way around. So you have to push first to get, it's like chicken or the egg. The pressure comes first, then the wards. You don't get wards and then pressure, because you're never going to get those wards without the proper pressure first. So he's always kind of a pressure point for P1 to push from.
It also looks like Arrow's going to go for Blade of the Ruined King Caitlyn, since he started with the Vamp Scepter. Blade of the Ruined King first on everything.
Just fit it into the build. And hey, Lod, that looks like a Blade of the King component to me, Jatt.
Could be.
All right, Bork versus Bork.
I don't think he would, but he
I know, right? It's like it beat you, so
Okay.
oh.
Lod popping the flash.
Yeah, making sure that Inori doesn't flash after him. Inori also has ultimate, so would have an extra movement speed increase.
Ooh. Okay. Good damage there onto Keane, but no summoner spells forced out. Keane recognizing that he wasn't actually in any danger of being killed, so can just walk himself away from that one.
Yeah, you wonder where they're going to be moving Arrow and Stunt next, or whether they just try and keep trading farming that bottom side. It's all about moving this Caitlyn around early on in the game and getting as much early pressure as possible.
They do have CS advantages in every role on the side of Phoenix1 right now. Even if they're very minuscule in some of those roles, they're still there.
It's interesting because that really hasn't happened throughout these last 2 games, because Ryu was sometimes down in farm from roaming against Keane. Zig is pretty much even most of the time, but Arrow got pretty much destroyed in one of the games, and then the next one, he was up, but Ryu wasn't. So now that they're all winning, we saw what it looks like when Phoenix1 is winning across the board. It's pretty rough, but it's actually kind of just even. You baited me, Flowers.
Zig getting back around here a little bit. Dropped the ulti just to escape. All right, he heard the Rengar roar, and he had to get the hell out of town.
Yeah, and it was smart of him also to just save his playful trickster as long as possible during that fight, because if he ever does get ulted by Ssumday, he'll be able to pop it. And the Rengar ult being used in the top side means Phoenix1 can just move down for the Mountain Drake.
Oh, there's that cognizance you were talking about. Keeping track of where the enemy jungler is and exploiting that for whether it's to avoid their play or make your own.
It's once you get to the professional scene, as a jungler, everything that you do can be exploited. You gank, and it's a successful gank. Top lane has to back off, because there's no way you're affecting that part of the map for the next minute. So there's constant things like that. And when you counter jungle, you kind of force the enemy jungler to go a certain path as well.
Ryu still with that small lead for himself in the farm. Got his Sorcerer's Shoes in his Lost Chapter, so mana's not really going to be an issue. Plus those shockwaves will hit that much harder. Sheen done for Zig. Means we're likely going to see him going for that Trinity Force build that the Bruiser Fizzes all go for.
Interesting as well with the Corruption Potion Double Dark Seal we talked about. The Dark Seal is sort of unique in the fact that the stacking mechanism doesn't stack. That's unique, but you do get extra health regeneration on your potions the more Dark Seals you get. So he ups his sustain when he goes double Dark Seal Corruption Potion as opposed to just one.
Phoenix1 enjoying a 1,000 gold lead right now, so it's not crazy, but it's still a solid early game from this team that is looking pretty comfortable with it.
And what just happened right there is Dignitas were going to try to make a 3-man play on the bot side, and P1, Arrow, and Stunt stayed there, waited for Inori to actually sync up with them until they move forward. They moved forward as a unit, and Ryu had mid priority. He was going to roam down. It would have been a 4v3 collapse. So you can see P1 are still trying to go after plays, or at least counter plays that they think Dignitas would be going for.
Yeah, and as of now, Phoenix1 still has a stranglehold over the tone of this series. They have completely taken control since Game 2, and it's kind of on them to not let Team Dignitas back into this. When we know Team Dignitas hasn't had a strength of creating plays. So if Phoenix1 just builds on what they did in the last game, win their lanes solidly, ward properly, pressure the lanes, they can win that way. Because Arrow has been so solid in the late game, as has Ryu. They're going to win that team fighting phase as long as they don't get run over by Dignitas early, is the way I think they should be feeling.
As long as they don't open up those avenues for Dignitas to find their way back into this series. They've got the momentum for themselves right now. We kind of talked a little bit about momentum in terms of its overall season meaning and how both these two were rebounding in the second half. But in this series, it's all about P1.
Yeah, and this is a play that happened last game as well. When they switch Arrow and Stunt to the lane, they put Zig on the bottom side. And last game, Team Dignitas 4-man dove him. Zig needs to back away and not die to this.
Yeah, he actually just threw out his Shark, I believe, for minions or damage there, just to clear the wave, and now it's back a little bit, so it gives him tempo top.
Yeah, it's always a balance when you're left on an island like this as the top laner between delaying as much as possible without suffering a fatality. Notice how there's no one defending at all on Ssumday's side, so that's actually a wave faster that Phoenix1 is going to be able to get it. So Zig, in essence, played this better than Ssumday, who rotated there to help the turret push because he delayed one wave, whereas Ssumday didn't.
He actually delayed it a lot. I went back to look at it. He threw out the fish, max range. It's this gigantic AoE. It killed all of the minions except for 2. So the Fizz ultimate actually did a ton of work there to just delay and allow them to push topside so they can rotate. And this might even be a Rift Herald because you bought so much time with that play from Zig.
Very seldom taken is the Rift Herald, one of those objectives that normally finds himself falling by the wayside, but Phoenix1 has found a good opportunity to pick him up this game.
Oh yeah, CS replay.
Oh no, this is going to be beautiful.
Yeah. Perfectly timed, dude.
And they just die. There's not even like a turret shot on top of it. It's like 3 get by, and that's what gets them the Rift Herald, is those little games of inches there. Role player.
Yeah.
Well, he's playing the role of a guy who wants to win right now. Clearing out those waves, keeping his team where they need to be, providing that Rift Herald buff. I believe they gave that over to Inori.
Yes, they did. Give him a little bit more durability in
and burst
1v1 situations and burst. Very seldom taken. This buff doesn't usually have much of an impact on the game, but when you have that tempo advantage that Zig gained by throwing that fish out, it gave them kind of almost free time to go for it.
Exactly. There's way more things that are better to do on the map, like pushing minion waves, etc. But they had already pushed top. They had the extra time. They didn't have enough to really take a tier 2, so they go for the Rift Herald that you barely ever take. And the fact that Inori has it, it's just kind of for jungle clearing. You can invade and clear a little bit faster there too. Feel a little bit safer. So far, it's only been 1 kill and 2 kills. Just the ones that were traded top, and it's just been macro over and over again here. Off of winning lanes. P1 were able to win bottom with no help at all, with just Arrow and Stunt and the matchup.
And you said it, Jatt. All they've got to do, play strong like this. Don't make any mistakes. Dig really doesn't do that well at saying, okay, we're pulling the trigger right here, let's go.
Yeah, they're a counter team. They love to counter your plays and collapse on those. So we're seeing P1 go for macro plays, out-rotating you, and those types of things. Now they're going on Xpecial.
Not really having a whole lot of a chance. Inori going to be forced to flash away. Wild Growth making sure nothing bad happens there as the TP is channeled. But it's canceled by Zig.
Yeah, but that is the type of play Team Dignitas can be prone to making when they're not all on the same page. They should be knowledgeable that so many people on Phoenix1 are missing. That was a 3-man death brush, and he checked through the dangerous zone.
Right now, Infernal's coming up in a few seconds. But,
okay, Shockwave's not going to connect. Chase's going to be in some trouble, though. The fish seals his fate. Ssumday now potentially in some danger of his own. Instead gets himself out, utilizing the flash. Phoenix1, though, has an easy ticket to punch for Infernal.
I was really impatient by Dignitas there. They actually had a summoner spell advantage. They had all their summoner spells up, whereas we had already seen a lot of flashes and exhaust or heals blown from P1. So you didn't have to check that for a good while. Xpecial was down, so it was a 4v5 at best. Dignitas looks like a little bit nervous, but there's a
good opportunity for Dignitas, though. Manages to grab that freebie onto the enemy top laner.
Yeah, that was definitely a spot where Zig did not expect to be warded, but we're going to watch this fight one more time.
And this just seems greedy, because there's 5 seconds on Xpecial.
Yeah.
Throws it in, and then they keep walking forward. Walked under.
Really wanted to make a play, but he loses almost all his health. Has to flash the Shockwave. Max range fish from Zig onto Chaser. A little bit of assistance there from Ryu. So really easy fight for Phoenix1.
Yeah, the Zig flank with the fish into the W. Man, the W doing triple damage after you hit them once and then getting the reset with Trinity Force is pretty disgusting on a squishy target. It's massive. Yeah, and Chaser's going for, of course, squishy build here on the Rengar early. You really don't get much help until later.
Wanting to be that potential carry from the jungle that can find the burst and still manage to take these guys out even through the Lulu and Orianna protection, but that is a tough job to do when Phoenix1 is ahead like they are. It's a little over 1,000 gold though, but Phoenix1 is again doing a great job of controlling these elemental drakes. We saw in game number 1 that they had an over 70% drake control rate, and we said, you know, we got to take that with a grain of salt. It might just be more about Meteos, but playing Inori every game, they've done a great job controlling these. I believe they only gave up the 1 in game number 1.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes through playing through bottom lane is a big thing. When they're playing through bottom lane and they have bottom lane advantage, you pretty much get the Drake, and Ryu loves to roam towards bottom, especially. Doesn't roam towards top a whole bunch, loves to roam towards bottom though.
Shockwave gonna force out another flash to Dignitas side. Phoenix1 will hold their turret, but Keane responds with some good damage.
Yeah, the blue buff Azir is definitely putting in a little bit of work right here, and it was kind of peculiar. Phoenix1 hadn't really created pressure anywhere else on the map, and we're still getting out pressured mid, so they fell behind a little bit on tempo just now.
Yeah, the game's back to dead even, quite honestly. 2 turrets to 2. Gold's pretty much matched up on the dot. Teleport not going to be coming through from Ssumday there.
Lose their top turret, so the gold is only about 400 apart between these two teams. Phoenix1 have been playing slow, getting some objectives, but we do have to talk about how those have been evened up in terms of turrets. Not so much in terms of Drakes, though. Nori looking for Keane.
Oh, Keane very low, and now he's going to be popped. The damage continues to come in onto Xpecial, who's got no way out. Zig was going to be there even if he did. P1, as soon as we start to talk about them losing their momentum, losing their tempo, they immediately find it right back, and now they're onto the tier 1.
Yeah, and so many of these plays throughout this series have actually just been Phoenix1 playing the map better than Team Dignitas. If you look at the spread of Team Dignitas while Keane and Xpecial are in River, they're the only 2 people pushed up that far on the map, and the rest of their team is split off in the side lanes, so Phoenix1 pounces.
And you know, the difference between a team that knows how to take advantage of those macro elements and that knows how to translate smaller wins into quick victories is something that separates mid-tier teams from high-tier.
Yeah, Ezreal is top, Rengar is in red buff, Ssumday is in bottom on Nautilus, and Xpecial is going for an ult on Inori. What's going to happen right there? The entire Phoenix1, or 4 of the Phoenix1 members collapse on him and pick up a double kill.
Yeah, Keane's walking forward trying to punish Stunt for clearing a ward, but Inori is 100% ready for that. And Ryu blows the flash to pick up the kill. You have to assume Stunt probably wasn't by himself doing that. Especially since you didn't have your team around you, like you said, Jatt.
Phoenix1 looking like a team that could potentially take this in a 3-0 if they keep it up. 2,000 gold lead for themselves, defending that tier 1 still to the death, not allowing Dignitas to get it.
And there were a lot of question marks for Phoenix1. Who are they starting? What does the team even look like with Stunt and Inori as the 2 starters here? Because we haven't seen them together ever. And it's been a while since you've seen Inori actually perform well. Because the last series he played, 0-2. If they start looking like this and start having a little more control, means that Phoenix1 are starting to look like that 3rd best team. Again, worthy of that 3rd seed.
Inori wants to go in here on the top side. Lod getting bursted very rapidly, but now returning some pain to Wild Growth. Trying to keep Inori alive, not going to be doing the job just yet, but Zig's able to make his way into the fight. Lod is down a 1-for-1.
What are you doing, Zirene?
Caster curse.
Telling Inori that he's playing solid. He goes in way too early there, but it was because he saw the opportunity on Jalad. He just needed to pull back a little bit earlier in that play. Could have been a lot cleaner. Gives it a little bit back towards Team Dignitas, but they still do pick up the kill on a lot.
Yeah, he had a QSS, so he's like, I'm going in. Even if they ulti me with the Malzahar, I've still got this.
Yeah.
Not quite.
The ulti isn't the only thing that keeps you alive.
Exactly.
QSS doesn't save you from the 15 auto attack you take to the face from Lod.
Hey, it's the Blade of the Ruined King. It's healing him so much. You don't expect that from the Ezreal. Revolutionary build here today.
Yeah, I mean, Lulu is very far behind him, but Inori really wanted to go for this play early. And he actually gets an isolation onto Lod, which is what he flashes for. But then he's in silence, and 3 Voidlings are kind of smacking him a little bit.
Yep.
So the rest of the team isn't quite able to get there. It was a 5-man play they were pulling off there. If they get that pick clean, they might actually go for an early Baron with the Mountain Drake, which is, I think, what he really wanted. But it doesn't quite go as they planned.
Mountain Drake, 20 seconds away right now as Dignitas hangs around the area, clearing out some of that vision.
Oh, man. Just seeing that hit from Arrow onto the Nautilus do pretty much nothing. That's the attack speed, Caitlyn with the Blade of the Ruined King.
Yeah, it's
harder to kill, but not incredibly effective against the tank.
yeah, the damage isn't going to be coming in until he can get some penetration against that Ninja Tabby Sunfire tape set up.
Yeah, we're looking at like 4, 5 items.
Yeah, it's a way away. But Phoenix1 still in a comfortable spot. And you know, looking at these teams, Dignitas though, they will grab themselves an elemental pick.
Yeah, Phoenix1's going to try and use this to take down a middle-tier turret or gate a fight right here.
Ssumday makes his way onto Ryu. He's going to be frontlining very well. Zig can't really soak damage that effectively right there. Has to back himself away. Remember, Zig isn't tanky yet.
That was really well done by Ssumday and Team Dignitas. And this is kind of the cost here of Arrow's earlier build, not having that Infinity Edge, not able to shred tanks whatsoever. I've seen the Blade of the Ruined King Hurricane work with the Lulu because you're getting so much picks attack speed damage, but really on Caitlyn, you're used to seeing that double Zeal Infinity Edge, and having Blade of the Ruined King, as Zirene mentioned, does make it a 4-item actual power spike.
And I like what Inori did right there. He walks up, threatens to steal away the blue, and makes Chaser smite it. So even though he doesn't get the buff, he keeps it off the Keane.
Yeah, and another thing too with the Caitlyn doing immense damage is her headshot actually scales with critical strike chance, and it's so much damage when you have an Infinity Edge, but he's not getting those gigantic crits in there. Traps aren't really just giving him huge pot shots on people either. So it's gonna be a bit, attack speed based.
Still very hard to kill, good lane pressure.
Yep, we'll keep getting the shield and movement speed from Lulu and Orianna so we can walk up and maybe take 200 HP off the turret, but someday TP'd look for a flank.
Ooh.
Good defense from Dignitas. The dredge line not finding its way onto the Lulu though, so Dignitas will hold their defense, but not find the counterattack just yet as P1 tries to get in position to keep their own tier 1 in good shape.
Yeah, a lot of wave pressure back and forth right here, centering around the mid lane. You can see Keane trying to shove that bottom wave, which gives Phoenix1 a lot of confidence. No vision here at the Baron area. Nice two-shot barrage.
Good scouting.
Last 2 times that you got picks on Phoenix1, because vision and brushes, that time they don't fall for it.
The lesson. Third time's the charm.
Not going to fall for it this time.
See Keane getting back to base, so Dignitas doesn't want anything to do with the fight right now. Rylai's Crystal Scepter and Nashor's Tooth done for the Azir. Pretty much the core that you expect Azir to need to really be an effective champion.
And speaking of that difference there in mid lane, 1,400 gold up for Ryu. He's a large part of this advantage that they have. And also Zig's about 700 up himself. So we're seeing the solo laners here be the big carries, where jungle you see is even, same with AD carries and supports.
And we said we were keeping eyes on Ryu, the guy who's made this series his own so far, doing it again this game, 2-0-3. 2 items completed, working on that Leandri's Torment next. And when you have that flat magic penetration, including the Sorcerer's Shoes that have already been completed as well, if you can land one of those shockwaves onto a value target like the Azir or the Ezreal, they are just going to be completely removed from the equation.
Yeah, I think at this point, there's 3 different champions that Ryu can straight up 100-0 with a full Orianna combo. He's very strong with the 270 CS at 25 minutes, so absolutely making every single game count this year.
And he's got 2 penetration items.
Oh!
That's not one of the 3.
That's not one of them, no. Ryu now in some trouble. Going to be Wild Growth, barely kept alive. Chaser looking to grab the kill. Can't quite do it. Ssumday now having to back himself out as Arrow's getting shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot after shot. Ace in the hole coming through. Finds its way onto Ssumday. P1 maybe looking to go for a little bit more here.
Inori's
1 for 1 so far. Zig did die in the fight along with Chaser.
Arrow's getting some HP back from clearing the wave, so he's back to full here, and they have the top side priority. They're going to look for a little bit of a wraparound.
Yeah, they're hoping the Team Dignitas would stick around and they can still try and keep this Baron pressure on. The Caitlyn plus the Kha'Zix can kill it very quickly.
And they
They
have a
might
mountain.
start it here.
They
'Cause
could.
they're expecting
Risky
to call.
play. It's a risky play. They could
Keane's
go
gonna
for it.
There it is.
All right, they've discovered what's happening.
But they might just try
Phoenix
rush.
1 does not have a lot of health bars. They got to be able to take this one down very quickly if they can. They've got it, but it was Arrow who had to secure. That was way too close.
That was way too close. That was like 67, 87 HP, and Redemption was coming down. And Inori kind of timed the smite with a Q there, and wasn't good.
No, it looked like he smote early and left it with a very low amount of health. We're going to watch this fight right here. He gets the shockwave on a Chaser. He does have Hex Drinker as well, and then is never really a part of this fight. So it gets pretty dicey within the middle of it. But Zig isn't quite tanky yet when he jumps in. And as we mentioned, while Arrow does have sustain, is not the greatest damage dealer within the fights.
Yeah, and he's also going for a little bit more defensive and slash survivability in his build, because now he's got a Null Magic Mantle, buys a QSS.
But this is the benefit, though, of the Blade of the Ruin King, is he heals to full right afterwards. And they just make the call for Baron. We knew they had Mountain Drake, we knew they had Kha'Zix, and Caitlyn would kill it quickly. But, Zirene, you're talking about this. Smite at level 13 does roughly 760 damage. So when does he actually smite? Because Redemption's coming in. 900.
Oh my goodness.
He smoted 807 for a 740 damage smite. So it's the...
It was down to 30 HP.
Yeah.
Baron had 30 HP at one point. Ssumday in some trouble. Gonna be munched by that weird fish, shark, bunny, rabbit,
Watership down.
nightmare critter thing. Yeah, we had this conversation the other day.
That's
That
the
thing,
official skill name.
not just from my nightmares. It's actually from a movie. But speaking of nightmares, Dignitas not exactly living the dream right now.
Yeah.
Phoenix1 bearing down in this tier 2 with a Baroned up team with a Caitlyn.
This is the nightmare as well. You go to sleep the night before your quarterfinals. You do not want to get 3-0'd, especially with the way Phoenix1 has been playing the map. Team Dignitas need to make a play here to keep their season alive.
P1, they're making sure this doesn't become a nightmare for them. Wait, the worst, but hold on.
Yeah.
All right, Keane
Far away
flash.
Yep.
Here's Ssumday.
Ssumday's here on the flank. Inori half HP for the fight. He's going to be bursted down. He can't do anything. This might be exactly what Dignitas needs, or is it? Stun big! Shockwave! MVP material right there. A double kill for Ryu. A double kill for Arrow. Lot is on the run.
Ryu is honed in this game. 4-man shockwave during that fight with the Baron buff. They're going to push through for the inhibitor.
My goodness gracious, this man is just doing everything this series. Ryu, 4-0-6 on the Orianna. Lod will not defend this inhibitor 1v3.
The only kill that Ryu has missed out on is that first one that went over in top lane on a dive. That's the only one, 100% KP. Besides that, he has been doing so much work. Not even just this game, the whole series, Ryu has shown up today.
Just when you thought the fight was going to turn around, the start of that fight felt so good for Team Dignitas because they initiated with Xpecial onto Zig as the rest of the team was distracted, falling back for Ssumday. So you really couldn't ask for a better start to that fight.
Absolutely true. When the top laner just gets killed for free, and you've got Ssumday already soaking in the back line, the setup is there, but when the shockwave is too,
Yeah, they picked off the support and the top laner, but they didn't get those core damage dealers. You'll see that here, where he actually goes for a long trek to do blast cones, which will take away his home guard because it puts him in combat.
Still a great flank.
And then onto Arrow here, he's left by himself. They pick off Zig in the front.
Yeah, but you always have to track the Orianna ball in these team fights. Moves it
Here,
in, instant shockwave.
Boom! And then just Rune's Hurricane, ba ba ba, right in there from Arrow.
kapow.
Wow, that could have been a quadra, but it's two doubles. It's a two pair right there with the imports.
That was so well done. Look at that excitement.
His Stunt's got enough excitement for both him and the Mafia boss Ryu.
If there's a definition of 4-man shockwave to turn around a team fight, that is it.
That's what you need to
That
do.
reaction cam.
He's dead during that play, too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he gets to
That's
do
all you
that.
can do is cheer.
the morale support as well.
We've all been there. You've got a game in solo queue. Your screen's black and white, and your teammate pulls off something absolutely incredible. All you can do is just celebrate, man.
Your death becomes much more palatable. You're like, yeah, they got
like,
me.
I set that up.
I
was a part of this.
I didn't screw this up completely.
This was the game-winning path.
Carry me. But still, I definitely think like everybody's been doing great work so far.
Oh, yeah.
Stunt as well. I think that this game, they were able to just bully that bottom lane, get that turret pretty much by themselves.
And it's not quite a 5,000 gold Baron power play, but it is darn close. 4,870 gold into P1 pockets.
And they're on the brink as well of pushing this into the semifinals. It's very important for so many of these guys to especially make it deep into the playoffs. If they can make it 3-0 as well, it's so much more of a statement.
Exactly, the statement. A lot of people didn't know what P1 was going to bring in terms of the roster. If Meteos was still going to start, but these guys starting today looks pretty solid right now.
And let's not pretend like this is all that there is to it. Just winning today, that means you still got to play against TSM or Cloud9. Well, actually, it's definitely going to be Cloud9. They're 100% against Cloud9 if they win this. But still, Cloud9, hell of a high-caliber team in the North American LCS. You've got to make a statement so people don't just immediately count you out.
It's not easy to initiate through here with no Baron buff. The Azir clears the minions so well. They've already opened the bottom inhibitor, but they need to wait for those super minions to crash into the turret. So we may need to wait, but it all swings on whether or not Ryu can land that shockwave or if Team Dignitas try for another flank.
And we came into today saying, this isn't going to look like your normal
Swing and a miss.
3rd seed versus 6th seed, but this is actually looking like
it is
a 3rd seed.
Looking a lot like
seed.
the normal 3rd versus 6th matchup. Absolutely. Phoenix1 has just turned everything into the on position, kicked it into overdrive, and Dignitas is struggling to keep up.
Yeah. Super minions coming in from the bottom side. Zig gets to split push, and they do a 4-1 since they have now that core of having Ryu involved instead of being a split pusher on that Orianna.
Ssumday still just trying to answer some of these super minions in the bottom lane. Of course, Dignitas, they still only have one inhibitor down, so it's not like you have this massive amount of extra pressure flowing into the base just yet, and that is definitely what they are trying as hard as possible to prevent, because we all know how hard it is to come back from a 3 inhib or even a 2 inhib kind of game.
Yeah, and even this game, if they're going to come back, it might actually have to happen around Baron or Elder Dragon. Baron will be up in 20 more seconds against the Mountain Drake, as well as Phoenix1's vision control. It's very difficult for them to move in there. Azir does have that tremendous scaling, though, if they can catch the right type of choke point, and that's kind of what Team Dignitas has got to hope for.
He's got those 3 core items, too, on the Azir. If you're looking for these mid laners, if they can make a hero play, they can end the game.
He's also got the Elixir of Intelligence. He knows the next team fight is potentially the last one if they lose it, so he's all in. Interesting to note as well that Laud has the Iceborne Gauntlet this game as opposed to Trinity Force. A little bit more of a defensive option, not quite as much damage, helps with the kiting.
Yeah, it allows you a little more time to get the Blade of the Ruined King healing back up. Don't completely agree with it because there's so much magic damage, but
It's an interesting choice. It's not one that you would normally see.
yeah, because
It's more of a tech choice.
Because Trinity Force has HP on it and the like, so it'll help you more against shockwaves and whatnot. Well, another Baron.
3-man Baron.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, there's not even a chance to stop that one on the side of Dig.
Oh,
Fire
Zig.
off True Shot. All right,
Zig was never there in first place. And now it's about
they
stopping the
stop the
recalls
backs?
as well.
Yeah,
And
they've
they
actually stopped them all.
those
They stopped them all.
But now they're forcing some kind of a 4v5 fight. Is this really what Phoenix1 wants? Stunt getting himself away. Inori going to be threatening the back line towards Laud. Zig making his way onto the Nexus.
They're delaying
Fighting back. Arrow staying alive. Stunt's going to be using the Wild Growth, keeping himself trucking as well.
Inori stopped
Zig
back
is
too.
on to Nexus turret number 2. He's got quite a few Baroned up minions. TP going to be channeled. Ssumday trying to
the
get back
ball!
and do something here.
Oh,
The Shark is thrown out.
Didn't
Ssumday is not at very high HP. He won't be able to protect this turret. He's going to just try to protect the Nexus, but Zig is very mobile, getting himself away now. Enough Dignitas members come back to stop him, but Arrow and Ryu have made their way into the Dignitas base.
And I mean, there's nothing to save the Nexus, so Arrow got to be a little bit careful since there are 4 people alive, but they make significant progress towards ending this game.
yeah. Oh, now you have to worry about all of those super minions that will be coming through the bottom lane because there's no turrets to help kill them.
Yeah, Azir is the ultimate base defense in these games, but that means he would be on base defense duty, so Elder Dragon up in 7 seconds. Arrow might just stick around and start this one.
Arrow's 3-0-1 with multiple items completed. He's got armor penetration, lots of attack speed like we've already chimed in on. And he's got Ryu right next to him, who is easily the scariest guy on the Rift right now.
Almost full build as well. Ryu is half an item away from full build. Keane, 2 full items away. Still has to sell Dorans.
Yeah, it's potentially a last stand here for Team Dignitas if they can get a fight at Elder Drake. But it's going to go down pretty fast. I mean, Keane is off killing blue buff, so that's not much of a last stand.
Yeah, they're not really trying to fight a whole lot for this. True Shot Barrage comes out, but
The spites haven't been great.
Yeah, that wasn't even a spike. No, I mean, to be fair, Ryu did a lot of damage.
yeah. But the smite still
MIA.
off cooldown. So it's
They got it. They got the Elder Dragon.
Yes.
Wasn't stolen.
This is a timeline where they have Elder Drake, so everything's fine for Phoenix1. Dignitas, though, things are quickly drifting away from fine and any synonyms.
Elder Drake and Baron, the ultimate combination, not to mention 0 Nexus turrets.
Yeah.
So they're going to actually push the 2 lanes that still have turrets in them right now as the super minions crash to give them as much spread on what Team Dignitas can muster as possible.
And now they have Zig in the top lane with teleport, and they also have Arrow with the Infinity Edge completed. Just needs to get one little half piece of an item now for the Mercurial, but that's it. They're going to keep shielding him, walk up, bam, get the turret.
The last stand of Dignitas begins here. They either hold the line or their playoff dreams for Spring Split 2017 will end with their Nexus. Phoenix1 playing it slow, playing it steady. They've got 2 different cannon minions enchanted with Baron buff up there in the top side. Inori and Ryu both just hanging out on the other side of that wall, seeing if they can get any kind of a chance here.
Look at that, just speed up for Arrow, just everything. He's got 2 supports just standing behind him. Ryu's not even threatening Shockwave or anything like that. Just give him the ball.
And by the way,
Yeah.
Nexus is exposed,
Hey,
guys.
they're in the base. You've got to fight, Dignitas. This is it. Zig's behind him, going for the Nexus. Shark onto Lod. The fish comes out.
Whoop.
Zig's still looking to make the moves if he can. They're in the back line. Inori firing off the rockets. Lod going to be kept alive right now. Inori's going to be taken low. Shockwave onto 2. 2 dead on the side of Phoenix1. The Nexus going to be targeted.
That's
it.
it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Phoenix1 is going to Vancouver.
People were wondering after week 9 when Phoenix1 goes 0-2 and swaps around a lot of their players, whether they'd be able to pull it together for quarterfinals. Emphatically, yes, a 3-0 over Team Dignitas.
Incredibly clean from them. Those were lane phase victories across the board. Game 1 seemed to be the only one that was close, and the shot calling prevailed, but then 2, 3 seemed rather easy for them.
Yeah, and when we say lane phase victories, they were taking small advantages and turning them into victories, which is not an easy thing to do. They were consistently moving around the map better than Team Dignitas, and unfortunately for Team Dignitas, their season ends here.
Dignitas, we said they went through a hell of a fight, a hell of a lot of obstacles to make their way to the playoffs. Unfortunately,
so happy.
it ends here, but Phoenix1, man, they need to be happy. They should be happy.
Stunt,
what a show.
Stunt just beat his old team that traded
Yeah.
him away to Phoenix1.
That's got to be, what's the word? You got to feel justified in that. Feel like they made the wrong choice. You were the person who was able to come back and say, hey, you shouldn't have traded me.
Yeah, it was a backup on Team Dignitas to a starter on Phoenix1. It's a pretty strong ascent throughout the year. And now some relief.
The 2
for
OG
Inori and
members.
Zig. The 2 members that were on Phoenix1 when they fell to the promotion tournament and now are here for their move into the semifinals.
After a showing like that, I feel like you've earned the right to slump down in your chair a little bit. Just take a deep breath and take it all in. You're going to the semifinals. You get to continue playing further now up against Cloud9. We said that's going to be their next objective. It's going to be one hell of a series.
Yeah, and you think about last time they played Cloud9, that's the 0-2 series where Stunt went 0-7, got completely blasted by Smoothie, and then they subbed him out for Shady.
Some rough times in that one, but Phoenix1 will look to make some sort of a redemption play for their whole team. We talked about Inori's redemption, his storyline. Well, now it's time for the whole team to hop on against that Cloud9 matchup.
Absolutely, that's going to be a good one.
Yeah, and the big thing I want to add, just final thing here is, we talk about lane phase victories. Those are much harder to get up against the likes of Cloud9, who have Jensen, Impact, and then even Sneaky was able to destroy the bottom lane last time alongside Smoothie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, to hear more about the clean 3-0 from Phoenix1 today,